West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. À fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte.
Rolling Stone today, they profile 70 different election officials who have been put into position in the swing states of Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, who are election denialists, committed election denialists. Officials that have been put in place in all of those swing states to make sure that election results, no matter what they are, do not get certified in those states this year. Quote, at least 22 of these election officials have already refused or delayed certification processes in recent elections. According to Democratic election lawyer Mark Elias, quote, I think we are going to see mass refusals to certify the election in November. Quote, Republicans are counting on not just that they can disrupt the election in big counties, they're counting on the fact that if they don't certify in several small counties, you can't certify statewide results.
By now you've all seen the Rolling Stone article, the one that inspired that chilling clip from Rachel Maddow titled, These Swing State Election Officials Are Pro-Trump Election Deniers. We've got the author of that piece with us today, Justin Glaw. Justin, thanks so much for taking the time.
Thanks for having me.
So you wrote that very sobering article outlining the fact that at least 70 pro-Trump election conspiracy theorists are right now working as county election officials, people who've doubted the election results in the past, with some of them outright having already refused to certify elections. To what extent does it feel like their refusal to certify anything other than a Trump win, a Republican win in November, is inevitable?
I think that's the game plan. I don't think that they would say it that way. I don't think that they would. And in fact, some of these people that I've talked to have said, oh, well, no, we don't plan to, refuse to certify. But, I think that we have clues to that based off of what's already happened in places like Washoe County, Nevada, and Fulton County, Georgia, where under pressure in Washoe County from election deniers, even a moderate Republican briefly said, no, I'm not going to certify these results, right? Based off of really questionable fraud claims. So, I think that is a very real possibility that anything that is not a obvious Trump win, they're going to say, well, we can't certify these results because there was all this fraud, right?
Is there a sense among these people that it doesn't even matter what happens with the actual votes because these administration officials themselves serve as a kind of stopgap for the Republicans to ultimately just get what they want anyway?
Right. I think there is no situation in which these officials in particular would accept election results unless every single person who's in charge of counting every vote, every person involved in every election system in the country is a full-throated, Trump-supporting person who believes that Joe Biden stole the 2020 election. Only then, really, would most of these people say, okay, you know what? Yes, Trump lost, or, somebody else won. But without having all of that in place, they're not going to buy it at all.
Do you think that they actually believe there's fraud, or is this just, that they recognize that refusing to certify is the avenue that they'll inevitably have to take because winning at any cost is the whole ballgame here?
I think that these people in particular, because let's be clear here about who these people are. These are local county election officials. Like, this is a part-time job. Some of these people, they may not even be getting paid for all I know, but if they are getting paid, it's a very small amount of money. These are appointed positions mostly, so these are not elected officials. So yes, this is always the big question with election denialism. Do people actually believe this, or is this a politically expedient thing for them to do to rise in the ranks? And, for people in Congress, I think we know the answer to that. Many of them probably don't believe it, but they know that it's going to get clicks, that it's going to get hits, that it's going to get them reelected. But for these people, these are the true believers. They don't really they're not making money off of this, really. They are not, getting a state Senate seat or something like that. Some of them are. But for the most part, these are people who are, if you've ever been to a local election board meeting, these are the same people who are on your local school board, or your local whatever the board is that deals with county ordinances and stuff like that. So like I said, I think these are the true believers. These are the foot soldiers.
Well, presumably these people do have access to every minutia of data, which should make them better informed than your average conspiracy theorist. So does the fact that they have that data at their disposal count for nothing, that they would still just fall for these blatant conspiracy theories?
Yeah, that's a really good question. In some instances, I talked to one of these people in Arkansas, which I did a lot of research on these folks in Arkansas and Mississippi that was not included in the story. But this guy was interesting because he was 2020 stolen from Trump. I became an election official to fix the system. And he's one of these guys who kind of then got in there and was actually, there's not really any major fraud that's happening, right? But it came with a caveat, right? He said, I know there's not fraud in whatever county he was in Arkansas that I can't remember the name of, but I can't say the same for all these Democrat cities in these Democrat states, because those are the places that Democrats run, and so there could be widespread cheating there, right? So that's one example. But as far as a lot of the other people who have access to this minutia of information that you're talking about and still believe this stuff, I have no explanation for it other than that a lot of these people are on the older side, and that there's a lot of very technical information and data that's involved here that also involves a lot of sort of computer technology. And I think that it's difficult to understand even for people who are very in the know about this stuff. So I think it's just almost like sort of an ignorance thing to a certain extent.
For the election official in Arkansas, for example, who said, okay, well, it looks okay here, but what about all those corrupt Democrat cities? Mm-hmm. For those people, does what they do in their little, in their office in Arkansas, does that feel like a way to push back against what they perceive as clear, certain corruption happening in those Democrat cities, and so they feel an obligation to compensate for them? Right.
Yeah. So it's a mindset of, there may be cheating elsewhere. These people may be cheating in Atlanta and Detroit and places like that, but they're not going to cheat here in Lee County, Mississippi or whatever. Right. And that's because we are in charge here and we are for election integrity. When in reality, as you well know, the rules and the systems in place are really not very different across states in terms of things that can catch something like widespread voter fraud. You know what I'm saying? Those systems and those rules, you're going to catch, if somebody actually, used a mule to input 1,000 fake ballots, whether it's in Lee County, Mississippi or Detroit, Michigan, they're probably going to get caught.
Yeah. I'm certain that the question you got more than anything as the result of this is folks reaching out to you and asking what the legal recourse is. So what do you say to those people?
So the legal recourse for refusing or denying or delaying certification of election results is essentially lawsuits, but also there have been instances in Arizona, for instance, in Cochise County, there were 2 officials who refused to certify results. They have been charged criminally for sort of like dereliction of duty type stuff. In other places, Democrat groups and the party has filed lawsuits against officials who have refused to do that. In Washoe County recently, like I was talking about, that moderate official who reversed on a previous decision to certify and said, actually, there's too many potential problems here. I'm actually not going to certify my own election win, is what she said earlier in July. In that instance, the county attorney and the Secretary of State came and they kind of told them, like, hey guys, this is your duty to do this. Like, this is not really up to your discretion to certify. You have a legal obligation to certify these results. And oh, wouldn't you know that she again changed her mind along with another Republican on that county commission and said, okay, we'll certify these results. But however, there was one Republican still that refused to certify. So those are basically the recourses that are available at this point.
Okay. And just for those watching right now, I will be speaking to Mark Elias in an episode of Democracy Watch about exactly this. And I know that Justin, you spoke with him for the article as well. So for people watching, please make sure to subscribe so that you can be notified when we do have that interview. Justin, you gleaned a lot of these people's political beliefs just by kind of scouring their Facebook pages. Did it scare you to see how susceptible these people in positions of power actually are to disinformation?
Yes. I mean, these Facebook pages, some of them are quite something.
I'm sure they're just a treat to go through this.
Look, it's not just like, you know, some of these people, like, there was a handful, there was only a couple of posts, right? But like, that's enough for me to know that like they believe in this stuff, you know? Yeah. But for other people, I mean, it was just prolific, and not just about election fraud, but like every right-wing culture war issues that you can think of. Anti-vaccine stuff, anti-LGBTQ stuff, you know, the groomers, like just everything that you can possibly imagine. And I'm not talking about like, oh, they made like 4 posts in a year. I'm talking like all day, every day. And like, if that's what it looks like for me on the public facing side of what their Facebook looks like, I can only imagine what it looks like inside their own heads as they're consuming this massive volume of misinformation and culture war outrage stuff. And in some cases, like, it became concerning to me because obviously we know that misinformation like this really, really gets some people fired up. And, you know, there's trying to mess around with elections, and then there is the possibility of political violence. And, like, these people are consuming the same stuff that leads down that road. Like, that is what their diet consists of. It's a you are what you eat type thing. Right. And for some of these people, I think that is a concern. For most of them, they're just like our crazy uncle on Facebook, kind of.
But isn't this by design? Like, when you have the Steve Bannons of the world who specifically work to recruit exactly these kinds of people who he himself radicalized, isn't that exactly what the Republicans are looking for, to fill the ranks of these jobs, these openings, these positions with exactly the kind of people who can gum up the works because they themselves have been radicalized by these bad actors on the right? Right.
And tying the existence of these people in these positions up the food chain of Republican politics is something that I've really tried to do over the last few years as I've been researching this stuff. And I have not yet found any like major evidence that like these people were being sort of put into place by the Republican National Committee or the Trump campaign or whatever. But it's more of like sort of a decentralized network. Right. Like I said, they're all consuming the same material, the same content. They're all believing in this, this lie of widespread election fraud in 2020. So in a way, the powers that be within the Republican Party, they don't even need to sort of put these apparatchiks into place in all these local election bodies, because those apparatchiks sort of already exist. Now, what I will say is that there have been lots of cases where, like I said, many of these officials are appointed, right? So in Spalding County, Georgia, the Democrats get 2, the Republicans get 2, so like they get a pick. They're people who are on the election board. And in a lot of places, what I've seen is that the more moderate voices are getting pushed out in favor of the more full-throated election denier people, so that those people can be in place on the election boards to look over election integrity.
It is Thursday, the 1st of August of 2024, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner the English Bulldog is our snoozing sous chef. Precious, our little Yorkie, is our door girl. But she is sleeping in, and we'll give you an update on her shortly. And in the interim, we will be seating you directly for our especially special daily special, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. A little bit of jambalaya, a little bit of spice in your life. Oh yeah. Well, a little update on Precious, and that is that she went for her IV drip yesterday. I told the women at the front desk about her being uncomfortable and in pain. So Dr. Dickey did prescribe a pain medication that she gets it's liquid, so I put it in a syringe and then squirt it in her mouth. So she'll get that twice a day, as well as the prednisone, which is administered in the same fashion. It's liquid. I put it in a syringe, 1.5 milliliters, and squirt it in her mouth. Try to keep it in the mouth. And I'm always concerned about it going down an airway, so I try to do it a little bit slow. Anyway, she seemed much better. She didn't have the drunken sailor walk. She went and peed. She was very hungry because she doesn't get any food from about 6:30 or so the previous evening. Drank a lot of water, so those are all good signs. But she wanted to sleep, but she moved around too while she, because that's what she would do. And when I say move around, what she did, I was about ready to close the security screens last night, and I couldn't find her. So I decided, I better go outside and look, because we've had some fairly hot days, and the nights are quite warm too. But she went out and was sleeping on one of the walkways out of people walking, if they were to do so late at night in the dark. But she was sound asleep. I picked her up, and she kind of woke up and went, what are you doing, kind of thing. So I brought her in and put her on her favorite spot on the couch. If she was able to get outside, she climbed down some stairs. It's not very much, just a step, which is about what it takes to get off of the sofa onto her little car seat bed that I use as a step for her to get up on the sofa, or just sleep in it, which she likes to do also. But she did move around on the sofa last night into various comfortable spots that she likes to sleep in, and she is sleeping away right now, and I'm going to let her. So it's a little early to give her medicine, though it looks like the prednisone, I could have given it to her a little bit ago, but I'm just going to let her sleep and recuperate, and I don't want her to wake up and be in pain, but she's going to get her pain medicine, so that's good. But she is better than I expected. I told my sister maybe I'm making a mountain out of a molehill, but I am on a death watch with this little dog. She is not going to be cured from this rare bone marrow cancer. It's a leukemia. It's virulently, and so whatever it was that caused her to be so worn down, listless, and in pain seems to have been alleviated tremendously from yesterday's treatment, and I'm hoping that the pain meds and the prednisone will keep her in a comfortable way until the next time she goes for her IV drip, next Wednesday. All right, so back into the news of the world. Donald Trump goes before a bunch of black journalists and yikes. You know, the guy's just a racist. Let's be clear about this. There's no way he likes to be in a room full of black people. Those people. Okay. And he's a racist. And that's why that movement is the way it is. Because he has given a bunch of bigots and racists permission to, well, they don't have to feel compelled to hide it. Why Donald Trump doesn't. First thing that he does when he comes in there, I guess you're supposed to kiss the guy's ass. Kiss his feet or something. He says he wasn't welcomed onto the stage. He was welcomed onto the stage, and they even called him president. When he's not. But they wanted to get the elephant in the room, out in the open, so they could move on, and he couldn't. He couldn't. So, well, it was to be expected, and I don't know, maybe we like to see it. I think it's important, actually, for people to see this. People hear, oh, he's a racist. Oh, yeah, this and that. Well, you know, until they actually see it, they don't believe you. I know. So I've just noticed on the local level issues that the MAGA supporters tend to avoid. Because it seems like through this whole process, starting around Malheur, I noticed seemed like a concerted effort by like actors, a collusion, a conspiracy, a team effort on talking points, etc., etc., etc. And so through these many years, I've noticed that when issues are presented to we plebes out here in the hinterland, or as MAGA likes to say, God's country. Yeah, okay, well, I got to tell you, God is omnipresent. He's not limited to whatever you think your country is, all right? Or your area. So, it just seems that people were getting their walking orders. Knowing how influential Coke Industries is in the area, it's no wonder. And it's also no wonder that they defend Coke Industries like it's the only thing they have. And in many cases, it probably is. That's how you get bought off. If you had any morality, you'll just have to, compromise it for the money. So it seemed almost Alec-like. Coup in a box. So I've just noticed that the local MAGAs are hitting on cylinders geared for Joe Biden. They haven't quite caught up to Madam VP yet, but they will. Oh, well, sure. They've got the Joe and the Ho gotta go. But now Joe's not there. Joe went. He's still around, though. And so various things, like they haven't figured out here on the local level what it means to be called weird yet. They will, and they're going to be totally pissed off. Actually, I take that back. They are totally pissed off. But they haven't quite gotten the weird meme. Because I guess they're kind of old, and even the ones who consider themselves to be Gen X and young, the Trumpenjungen MAGA Nazis, the anti-vax homeschoolers, or homeschool parent. Boy. So, but they haven't quite figured it out. And also Project 2025. We know about it, and the more rational, critical thinkers here in Rogue River know about it, but apparently the MAGAs, they haven't quite figured out what it is yet. And We'll remind them, and we're going to put it around their neck like an albatross. And that's just the way it's going to be. At the same time, calling them weird. I called a local, the usual suspect who comes out and rails against our government schools. He also came out and complained, I mentioned this earlier, complained about a local fellow who bakes cakes, and he's really good. He's got the frosting piping technique down. He's good. But, every Halloween, everybody does a skull cake. So this pearl-clutching anti-public education, well, he's a pearl-clutcher about a lot of stuff, like the morality of our country has been destroyed because of liberal excess. Like black performers, our culture is being destroyed by those people. But don't call the guy racist. Don't call him a bigot. In fact, I was calling him a bircher until he figured out what bircher is, and I realized this guy's not that old then, is he? But his dad was a bircher, and that's where he got it. He doesn't even know. Yeah. So talk about indoctrination. Let's be clear about this. He's upset that what he got indoctrinated with growing up is not being taught in our schools. So I can tell he's probably, if he's married, he insists that his wife stay at home. Because this is the other thing. Ostensibly, this guy's supposed to be a neighbor, but I don't see anything about the guy, like, complaining. Well, actually, he complains a lot. But I don't see him, like, reviewing favorably a local restaurant. Propping up local businesses. Not one word. It's all about how our government is destroying us. Liberals are indoctrinating our kids. He's an anti-vaxxer. The fluoride in the water, the chemtrails in the sky. So, I don't know. I think calling him weird came at the right time because I gotta tell you, I was having kind of a difficult time trying to figure out what is a short, snappy response to these weirdos? And calling them weird weirdos works just fine. They don't quite like it. They go, well, you're the one that's weird. Really? Am I? Yeah, of course I am. I wear a hat. Okay? And it's not a baseball cap either. Yeah, guys wear hats around here, but it's a regular trucker cap. Okay, so I don't wear one of those, so I guess I'm weird. But I consider that to be a good kind of weird. The bad kind of weird is one who makes some sort of religious statement about a skull cake on Halloween or for Halloween. Complaining like, well, what about the kids? Yeah, what about the kids? They love this stuff. It's Halloween, you idiot. Party pooper. I call him a nincompoop, party pooper, and weird. And they don't like it. So nincompoop and party pooper, too many syllables. Weird, succinct, to the point, explains exactly what they are. And we'll have to keep it up. I haven't quite done the say it to my face yet, because that could get me kicked out as being threatening. Even though people threaten me all the time by saying, we're going to dox you, we know where you live, they let me know that they believe in the Second Amendment while threatening me. That doesn't rise to the level of actual threats or hate speech. But calling someone a nincompoop, I got suspended for calling this guy Marvin a nincompoop. And the administrator said I have to learn to be nice. After they call me, literally, and I pointed it out to them, they literally called me they call me godless a lot, but I'm trying to remember the exact one. But it's something along the lines of a pedo baby eating commie. That sort of thing. They got to get the pedophile thing in there. So, yeah, and this guy Marvin, the nincompoop, claims that the reason I'm defending the skull cake is because I hope it's the size of a child's, so I can pretend I'm eating a child if I buy the cake. It goes along with I'm the resident liberal, I'm the resident pedophile, baby-eating commie. But call someone a nincompoop and they'll suspend you. Okay? So if I tell someone to say it to my face, because I've already been... Actually, I responded one time when a guy said, I'm going to kick your ass. Tell me where you're going to be. And I said, I'm going to be at Hotel Holt Coffee. Come on down. I got suspended for threatening the guy. He threatened me, said, I'm going to kick your ass. And I go, come on down. All right. So I guess I have to choose my battles. But regardless, they haven't quite got the marching orders from Alec how to deal with Madam VP yet. And they're going to be very surprised, and they're going to be whining to high heaven that it was all stolen from them. People won't vote the way we want. Which brings me to another point. In the defense of Marvin, the usual suspect, a fellow came and tried to accuse me of being actually against multicultural representative democracy because I can't read the room here in Rogue River and what the prevailing political opinion is, and so I should either you to it or keep my goddamn commie mouth shut. A veiled racist statement that I am not of the same culture as Marvin. And what culture is that, I asked. He says, well, you're not from around here. And I reminded him that I was born in this state, lived up and down this state, owned property in this state, raised my kid and grandkids in this state. But apparently because I didn't spend as much time in sundown town Southern Oregon, I don't count. But transplants from every place in America where they were too right-wing for that spot, they came here. And because I don't accept that culture, I'm the one that is against multicultural representative democracy. And I was pointed out by what's going on in Shasta County, which we affectionately refer to as MAGA Nazi land, because that's what it is. And how did these MAGA Nazis take over local government? Was it by going out and knocking on doors to secure the vote? No, it was showing up at people's houses in the middle of the night with 100 or more motorcycles, Harleys, revving their engines, Klieg lights, and bullhorns to intimidate anyone running against them, to intimidate the cop. And when I say cop, I mean they don't have a lot in parts of MAGA Nazi land. Intimidate people that they consider to be the outsider to make sure that they don't vote if they're not able to get them to actually get the hell out. So because I don't accept a bunch of Nazis, well, I didn't call them Nazis, I called them white Christo nationalists. Sounds to me like the guy's talking about a secessionist movement, not a culture, and I have nothing to do with that, especially one that's totally at odds to the founding of this nation. So, apparently, we've indoctrinated our kids into such terrible liberal beliefs that we can't accommodate those groups who are hell-bent on destroying it. This is the mindset that we have to deal with, and my response to that is how to deal with it. Call them weird. Because it is. It's weird, and so are they. Okay, oh my gosh, what do we have in store for you here in the Bistro Cafe as we begin on this fabulous Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays? Well, bad news. 70 or a couple of hundred, actually, when I saw another article, election officials have been either in place or elected. The guy in Arizona that we spoke about yesterday in Maricopa County, a moderate Republican, whatever that means. Basically, he said, these are election lies. The MAGA supporters want to come in and dick around with the actual data on the voting machines, and I'm not going to allow it. He lost his position as the election official there in Maricopa County because I guess he was woke. All right. So we got all those people out there to prevent the certification of the November election. What could go wrong? We'll find out. On the rest of the menu, a jury convicted a man of illegally accessing Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg's health records in 2019. And he claims he's not guilty all the way up to the point where they convicted him. Massachusetts businesses with at least 24 employees must disclose the salary range for new jobs. Well, good. And Black and other minority farmers are getting $2 billion from the USDA after years of discrimination. After the break, we move to the chef's table where a Russian couple in Slovenia has been sentenced to 19 months in prison for spying, and then they got to get out of the country. And an investigation has determined that Chinese state actors were responsible for a 2021 cyber attack on Germany's National Office for Cartography. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. To apologize earlier for yesterday not getting the chef's table up in its regular time. We did record it later live and put it up in the podcast, so it is there. Precious, since we were taking her to her IV drip yesterday, suddenly needed a little bit more attention, and I thought I could get everything done during the break. But in the midst of it, I realized there's no way that I could just leave her or hold her and then finish up. So we went to alternative programming, so I apologize for that. But the full show, of course, is available on podcast at Spreaker or wherever you find podcasts. Alrighty. This first offering here in the Bistro Cafe, of course, we're going to forego the usuals. You can make a donation through Patreon. Become a recurring Patreon of Netroots Radio. Tom has provided a button, way to do so, near the bottom of our homepage at netrootsradio.com off to the right. So go check it out. We're still under construction a bit, but he's finishing up. Thank you, Tom. This first offering comes out of the Washington Post by Salvador Rizzo. A 34-year-old man was convicted yesterday, Wednesday, of illegally accessing the private medical data of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg in 2019, but acquitted of posting the information to an online message board where conspiracists falsely claimed Democratic politicians were covering up her death. This is one of these confusing convictions I still haven't figured out after reading this article twice. And this is the third time now. Trent Russell testified in his own defense near the end of a 2-day trial in U.S. District Court in Alexandria, Virginia, repeatedly asserting that he never viewed or posted the justice's confidential medical information, which showed details of her cancer treatments at George Washington University Hospital. He says he never looked at medical records for patients he wasn't assigned to. Okay, so he's claiming he wasn't assigned to Ginsburg. And he portrayed himself as a longtime first responder, a former Army combat medic who did a tour of duty in Afghanistan and denied being a conspiracy theorist. All right. We'll find out about that as we go through the article here. After a half day of deliberations, jurors convicted Russell of wrongfully obtaining Ginsburg's private health information and destroying records in a federal investigation. He was found not guilty of wrongfully disclosing the information. Maybe he thought it wasn't wrong. We'll see. The Justice's Hospital chart first surfaced on 4chan, then spread to Twitter and YouTube, attracting immediate attention from federal investigators and prompting alarm from Supreme Court police officials, one of whom testified in the case, about discreetly shepherding the justice to cancer treatments in part to protect her privacy. And of course, we know Ginsburg died in 2020 at age 87. The original post had been deleted by the time federal agents were investigating the data breach. And when the FBI contacted 4chan to determine who posted Ginsburg's medical chart, the website said it could no longer provide such information as the time of posting or the poster's IP address because of the deletion. Really? Is that true? Well, Russell had access to the hospital's patient records because he worked as an organ transplant coordinator who would evaluate patients near death across 48 hospitals in the D.C. region. He testified he conceded on the witness He conceded on the witness stand to frequenting 4chan. Now remember, he claims he's not a conspiracy theorist. And he enjoyed discussions about TV, movies, video games, current events, and conspiracy theories. Not too long, just a couple of decades. Not a conspiracy theorist. FBI agents and a former hospital administrator testified that they traced the January 7th, 2019 search for Ginsburg's patient chart to one of Russell's home computers. Russell initially told federal agents in February of 2019 that it was possible his cats had run across the keyboard, although he later said he was joking. He told the jury he had no idea how Ginsburg's records turned up on the screen. I feel like everyone's made typos, he said. The federal agents testified that his cell phone location data placed him in the area of his Arlington residence at the time his hospital credentials were being used to access Ginsburg's medical chart from his home computer. Federal prosecutors in Virginia argued that Russell violated Ginsburg's right to privacy under HIPAA, even though he had received regular training and reminders not to access or disclose private medical data. Now, Ginsburg had not been referred as a potential organ donor to Russell's employer, the Washington Regional Transplant Community, and Russell, therefore, had no reason to be searching for her patient chart. U.S. officials said Russell falsely told investigators during that 2019 interview in February that his phone had been stolen. The FBI said he deleted data on a hard drive before turning it over to the FBI for investigation. Russell's attorney, Charles Burnham, said that was a mischaracterization by the federal agents. Russell had only formatted the drive, which is not quite the same as deleting his data, he argued. But, of course, formatting a hard drive entails deleting data to improve its performance. Now, the FBI was able to retrieve the data, and they found many things that were quite telling about how many times he visited 4chan not to watch movies, but to share conspiracy theories. They said they found 4chan posts on his hard drive delving into anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, including one titled, "Mossad just tried to assassinate Trump during the White House Christmas tree lighting," and a Google search for "Dirty Jew." Will be abbreviating these next offerings here in the Bistro Cafe, but you will always have access to the full articles if you follow my social media feed at Justice Putnam, which will take you to the show notes and links diaries I post every day on Daily Goes, which will give you quick access to the full articles by the reporters involved. This next offering here in the Bistro Cafe is by Steve LeBlanc from the Associated Press. Massachusetts businesses with more than 25 employees must disclose salary ranges when posting new jobs under a new bill signed into law yesterday, Wednesday, that puts the Commonwealth in line with 10 other states that already require pay transparency. The new law also protects a worker's right to ask their employer for the salary range when applying for a job or seeking a promotion. Summer Ballantine brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. The Biden administration has doled out more than $2 billion in direct payments for black and other minority farmers discriminated against by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. More than 23,000 farmers were approved for payments ranging from $10,000 to $500,000, according to the USDA. Another 20,000 who planned to start a farm but did not receive a USDA loan received between $3,500 and $6,000. Most of the payments went to farmers Most of the payment went to farmers in Mississippi and Alabama. The USDA has a long history of refusing to process loans from black farmers, approving smaller loans compared to white farmers, and in some cases foreclosing quicker than usual when black farmers who obtained loans ran into problems. Just don't call it systemic. All right, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we've curated for you today. You are listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, and we will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
You're listening to the American Democracy Minute, keeping your government by and for the people. National Poll Worker Recruitment Day is August 1st. The pool of roughly 800,000 poll workers nationwide is aging, and shortages have been reported in some areas. If you've been vocal about making sure our elections are free and fair, now's your chance to protect them by becoming a trained poll worker. The U.S. Election Assistance Commission spearheads Poll Worker Recruitment Day, helping states and municipalities get the word out about serving. Poll workers skew older, with a median age of 64, and many at-risk volunteers retired during the pandemic. Others cited conspiracy theories by fringe election deniers, fueled by former President Donald Trump to see doubt in the election process. Typically, poll workers must be 18, registered voters, and live in their community. Training is usually conducted by county or state officials. Election duties can be outside the rail, meaning directing voters, verifying identity, and registering new voters, or inside the rail, monitoring the election process, assisting voters, tabulating ballots, and running reports. Depending on your municipality, poll workers may volunteer or receive a stipend. If you want to help protect your democracy, or perhaps you just want to learn about how secure our election process actually is, speak with your local election office about becoming a poll worker. Your community thanks you. We have more on becoming a poll worker at AmericanDemocracyMinute.org. I'm Brian Beal.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day National Guard troops in Minneapolis raided Teamsters Local 574 headquarters. Over 150 were arrested, including top strike leaders Bill Brown and the Dunn brothers, who were imprisoned in military stockades. Troops also seized union records and files. They then raided the Central Labor Union and forcing out dozens of area labor leaders. The Teamsters had been battling the trucking bosses and the Citizens Alliance throughout the spring and summer in what would be a turning point for industrial organizing. Finally, drivers agreed to a tentative settlement, but the bosses rejected any deal, refusing to negotiate with Reds. Farmer Labor Party Governor Floyd Olson declared martial law the next day. 4,000 troops arrived, issuing unlimited military permits to scab drivers. By month's end, over 7,500 scab trucks were rolling throughout the city. Local 574 challenged the martial law, demanding that peaceful picketing and open-air meetings be reinstated. They also wanted troops withdrawn from the city, and they wanted all truck movement halted for 48 hours. When Olson rejected these demands, a mass rally was called for the 31st to mobilize strike support. 25,000 turned out to the parade grounds cheering strike leader Bill Brown, who declared, quote, "The Farmer Labor Party is the best strike-breaking force our union has ever gone up against." Historian Brian Palmer notes, the loudest and longest applause was reserved for Albert Goldman, who thundered, quote, "If we submit without a struggle, then we deserve the fate of submissive slaves. We dare not submit. We call upon the workers, organized and unorganized, to clench their fists, shout defiance of the bosses, and struggle until victory or death."
Thank you for accompanying us here to the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Metro Shrimp and Grist Thursdays. We always begin weather from around the world along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is 66 degrees Fahrenheit under sunny conditions, expecting highs between 105 and 110. Visibility will be reduced by smoke. Winds out of the west-northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Clear skies overnight with visibility reduced by smoke. Lows in the mid-60s, winds out of the west-northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour. Then partly cloudy skies tomorrow with highs around 102 to 105. Winds out of the northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour with no forecast of visibility reduced by smoke. Let's hope it clears up. Grass pollen is rated moderate here in the town of Rogue River. The air quality index for the region is in the unhealthy range for sensitive groups, and that's at 104 parts per million, and the daytime UV index is very high at level 8. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.97 inches. Visibility is up to 9 miles. And relative humidity is at 62%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world, and that is the Weather Underground. It is. London is 83 degrees and partly cloudy. Paris is 81 degrees with rain showers on the Olympics. Maybe they like it. It could cool them off. Rome is 95 degrees and sunny with a severe heat advisory. I should add that Paris also has a moderate heat advisory. Kabul is 77 and clear. Hong Kong is 85 and clear. Tokyo is 82 and partly cloudy. Auckland, New Zealand is 50 degrees and cloudy. San Francisco, California is 56 and cloudy. Chicago, Illinois is 77 and mostly cloudy. And New York is 90 degrees Fahrenheit, sunny with a heat advisory. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Staff at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. A Russian couple was sentenced in the Slovenian capital to 19 months in prison each after pleading guilty to spying charges. The husband and wife were released on time served and were ordered to leave the country. The court sentenced them for espionage and using fake documents to register their firms. The couple was also banned from returning to Slovenia for 5 years. They had posed as Argentinian citizens and settled in Slovenia in 2017. The couple used the Slovenian capital as their base of operations to travel to neighboring NATO and EU member states to relay orders from Moscow, Vlad, and bring cash to other Russian sleeper agents. They were arrested in 2022. Heather Molson at the World Desk of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, Metro Shrimp and Grits Thursdays. An investigation has determined that Chinese state actors were responsible for a 2021 cyber attack on Germany's National Office for Cartography. The Chinese ambassador was summoned to the foreign ministry for the first time in decades. The last time was to censure them for the crackdown on Tiananmen Square. The foreign ministry said that the German government has reliable information that our intelligence services, or from the intelligence services, about the source of the attack on the Federal Agency of Cartography and Geodesy, which was carried out for the purpose of espionage. Well, that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day, but you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here tomorrow for Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here tomorrow, right here in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, qu'il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goer. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair, t'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. De novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.